hello everyone, and welcome to lesson number 17 of the Enjoy Life Forever publication. As always, if you have not watched the introductory video, which explains how to really approach this if you are doing the study with one of Jehovah's Witnesses, please watch that introduction video. If you can, watch all the previous lessons as well, but those aren't necessarily a prerequisite if you're just now starting to watch these reviews and you're up to, let's say, lesson 17. So definitely watch that introductory video. It will be linked in the description below. So like the last couple of lessons, we're certainly going to be dealing with the person of Jesus Christ, which certainly is maybe the most important set of lessons in this entire study, because what can be more important than knowing who exactly Jesus Christ is. So you certainly want to maximize these opportunities. And don't necessarily let your study conductor zip right past these, because you can basically blink and all of the Jesus lessons are pretty much over, and you're moving on to the next things. Because if you've been following along in all these lessons, it takes a number of lessons before you get to barely a mention of Jesus, much less any sort of focus on him. So definitely maximize these, and don't, again, let your study conductor zip past these, or do, for example, lesson 17, 16, 15, any of the actual Jesus lessons. Don't let them use your entire single session for just one of these studies. So it doesn't have to be a lesson per session in your study with a Jehovah's Witness. Don't let it be that way. You have to be the one to control this, because in the mind of the Jehovah's Witness, they're just following the template. It's read the paragraph, ask the question, move on to the next one, then the next one, then the next one. Right, so they're going to basically zip through this, but don't let them do that. Take your time. Take more than one session. Just explain to your conductor that, hey, I've got a lot of questions about what I'm seeing in the Watchtower's literature as it relates to Jesus. Can we look at some of those in more detail before we move on to the next lesson? So maybe mention that at the beginning of the study and again at the end. Just make sure they know that you have questions and you want to get there. So they're not going to let you just teach them, okay? That's probably not what they're going to let you do. But they will let you ask them questions. So just frame it in such a way to where I want to ask you, study conductor, how you view these certain passages about Jesus. Can we talk about those? So please consider leaving time for that and not limiting it to the questions that are asked in these articles or these lessons, because you're going to miss some really important opportunities, and I'll show you kind of a case in point here with that. So let's jump right in. So what is Jesus like? As we learn, and we're not going to read every single one on this, I just don't think it'll be that important too. So if you do have questions about what we don't cover in this review, please don't hesitate to contact me. So I'm going to skip over a couple of things and really try to highlight the most important aspects of this. And if you have any thoughts just in general about maybe an important part that I just missed that I should have reviewed, just please leave those in the comments below. It's quite possible I might have missed something in this review that I should have highlighted. So anyway, let's continue on. As we learn about things Jesus said and did on earth, we discover qualities that draw us closer to him and to his Father, Jehovah. What are some of these appealing qualities, and how can we imitate Jesus in our own life? And so this goes back to, I don't remember which lesson it was, but one of the earlier lessons about friendship with God, and then likewise friendship with Jesus Christ and what those things mean. But you have this element about drawing closer to Jesus. And the idea in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness is that as you just read about Jesus, you're drawn closer to him. But this is really a strange way to look at a relational closeness, because take just any historical figure to where volumes and volumes have been written about him or her. Do you feel relationally closer to that historical figure the more you read about them? Do you feel a relational closeness? Now, it might get to the point to where you almost feel like you know a lot about them, and maybe to some degree you're like, yeah, I feel like I know this person, right? And maybe to some degree that's true, but you don't have a relationship, because a relationship is a two-way street. You probably, when you read a book about, let's just say, a famous figure like Abraham Lincoln, you don't say you have a relationship with Abraham Lincoln because you've read a lot about him. You probably, or you shouldn't be talking to Abraham Lincoln the more volumes you read about him. But with the person of Jesus, if you have a relationship with Jesus, you should be communicating or talking with Jesus. Otherwise, it's not a relationship. And just as a reminder, this is one of Jehovah's Witnesses' favorite verses, John 17:3, and this is eternal life, that they may know you. So the New World Translation used to translate this as take in knowledge of you, but they've now correctly translated it like most Bibles do, know you, the only true God, that being the Father, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. So it's not only knowing God, it is knowing Jesus Christ. They're said as equivalents here in John 17:3. Neither one of them is diminished in this relationship. So you could ask your Jehovah's Witness study conductor, can you draw close to someone like Jesus through having a relationship with Jesus? And what does that relationship look like? And does that relationship parallel the relationship between God the Father? And they're going to explain how that relationship differs significantly. And once they finish explaining it, I would just ask them if you can read John 17:3 and talk about that knowing God and knowing his Son and what that means. All right, point number one, in what ways is Jesus like the Father? In heaven, Jesus has watched his loving Father and learned from him for billions of years. Now, this is pure speculation. It's also unbiblical. There's no passage in the Bible which talks about Jesus in that pre-incarnate state learning for billions of years. There's just nothing. It's in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, right? And to really focus in on what that entails, because we have the revelation now of the Christian scriptures to give us more details on what that was. You can go to texts like John 1:1, actually through 1:3. It's in the beginning was the Word. In other words, wherever you put the beginning, it was the Word. The Word was already there. Where as far back as you want to go at the beginning. And this is the beginning of just time itself, because Otherwise, beginning doesn't have any meaning. So just the beginning was the Word. The Word, Jesus, is already there. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The New World Translation translates that. The Word was a God. We're not getting into that here. So in verse 2, he was in the beginning with God. And then verse number 3, and this really puts a lens on what Genesis 1:1 entails. All things came into being through him. That's through Jesus. And you can even look at Jesus as the instrument in which God used to do the creative work. And apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. When you consider the concept of time, time is something that came into being. Time hasn't always existed. There was a beginning to time. And if everything that came into being was created by Jesus Christ, then Jesus Christ created time. Okay? So there's no indication that there just was billions and billions of years of learning. Now, depending on where you stand on the age of the earth and the age of the universe, we're not getting into that here. We touched on that in some of the one of the earlier lessons. You do have billions of years where creation was taking place if you hold to that old earth view, but there's nothing there about Jesus learning. It's just not there. I mean, and you can just really speculate wildly on this if you believe that Jesus had learned throughout this whole process, because when in their view, when Jehovah created Jesus, did he create Jesus with any knowledge? No knowledge? Was he just like a baby, just knowing nothing, and God had to teach Jesus how to talk? Where in the scriptures is anything about this? It's just pure speculation. Okay? It makes way more sense that God, if you want to say that God created Jesus, which I don't think is accurate, but why wouldn't or couldn't God just create Jesus with full and complete knowledge? Why not? Why couldn't God have done that? Okay, all right, so let's continue on. As a result, he thinks, feels, and acts just like him. So they have a read John 5:19. It says, "Therefore Jesus answered and was saying to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing from himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing." Okay, in other words, Jesus is not just a rogue, just doing like whatever just he wants, right? There is a unity there. There's a unity. And that's something you can be confident in. That Jesus is not just some rogue doing whatever he wants. And that is not a deficiency in Jesus. Now, I've heard Jehovah's Witnesses look at that as a deficiency. But how is that a deficiency? Right? How does that remove his deity? If anything, you would expect a unity between the Father and the Son, right? So it says, "For whatever the Father does, these things the Son also does in the same manner." And the Jehovah's Witness is probably not going to realize what this actually entails. So you could ask the question, what can the Father do that Jesus cannot do? And this is something you can ask your study conductor. What is it that the Father can do that Jesus can't do? Ask them to make a list and write it down. Seriously, that's a great thing you can ask them, okay? And whatever is on that list, whatever it is that's on that list, and it could be the Father can have more power than Jesus, or more, like, I don't know, you can just think of whatever attributes a Jehovah's Witness could come up with, and write those down. But then this verse wouldn't be true, because it says, these things the Son also does in the same manner. So the Son has full capacity to do anything that the Father can do. And if there's something the Son can't do that the Father can do, then this verse just isn't true. This verse just isn't true. And it's more than just what they say here. Jesus thinks, feels, and acts just like him. This is related to the attributes of God, and those same attributes being shared with Jesus. So if Jesus can do anything that the Father can do, then they have the same attributes, whatever those attributes might be. Continuing on, in fact, Jesus reflects his Father's personality so perfectly that he said, whoever has seen me has seen the Father also. As you learn about Jesus' personality, you come to know Jehovah better. For instance, Jesus' compassion for people shows how Jehovah feels about you. So let's unpack John 14:9 just a little bit. And let's look at this in context, starting in verse 8. Philip said to him, that being Jesus, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. So Philip is asking for the Father to be just revealed, that they could see the Father. And I'm going to just do a little bit of speculation here. I'm not proposing being dogmatic about this, but is it possible that Philip and possibly the other disciples around could have had in mind those occasions in the Hebrew Scriptures where people claimed to have seen God? Could he have had that in mind? And Philip and maybe the other disciples, they want to experience that because they know, I mean, these are Jews, and so they probably, these are what theologians call theophanies. They should be aware, if they're Jews who've been going to synagogue their whole life, has heard these accounts read where men and women of old have claimed to see God, and we're going to look at some of those in just a minute. Could they have had that in mind? And that's why they're asking Jesus, show us the Father, right? And that will be good enough for us. We'll be all set. Just show us God. Wow, we'll be good. We probably won't even need to ask you for anything else, because man, that's going to be awesome. Look at what Jesus says. Jesus said to him, have I been with you all so long, and have you not come to know me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? These words that I say to you, I do not speak for myself, but the Father abiding in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Otherwise, believe because of the works themselves. Okay, we could keep reading if you like, but I just want to focus in on a particular point here. This is not an account that is merely talking about Jesus reflecting his Father's personality perfectly. It does entail that, but it is much more than that. Because what is Jesus saying to Philip? He's saying that, Philip, there's nothing to show you. There's nothing else to show you other than me. They don't need to get a glorious revealing of God the Father, because you've got me standing right here in front of you. Because I can reveal the Father perfectly for you, and not just his personality. I have all of the attributes of God. And even before the world was, and you can go to John 17:5, where Jesus said, return me, I'm paraphrasing, return me to the glory I had with you before the world was. So Jesus shared in the glory. In Hebrews chapter 1, it says that Jesus is the radiance of his glory. And this is Hebrews 1:3. He's the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature or essence. Jesus reveals the Father perfectly. So there's nothing else to be seen. You don't need to see God the Father because you've got Jesus here perfectly revealing him. And let's go to a few of those accounts where, and there's so many of these. I'm just going to mention a couple, and we're not even going to read the whole entire context. These will be great things to ask. And we'll kind of preface this by looking at John 1:18. It says, no one has seen God at any time. So keep that in mind. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten God who is in the bosom of the Father, he has explained him. Or as some translations put it, and commentators say, like revealed him, exposited him. Right? It's a revealing. So no one's seen God, and that's referring to the Father. But you have the only begotten God, who is Jesus Christ. He's revealed him. So remember, he who has seen me has seen the Father. So we have in Genesis 16:13, then she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, you are a God who sees. For she said, have I even remained alive here after seeing him? How have I remained alive here after seeing him? Saw who? Yahweh, God. Read the account. And most of these accounts, and these are all over the Hebrew Scriptures, a lot of these have the angel of Yahweh appearing. But the angel of Yahweh is interpreted this way by these people who experience this angel or messenger of Yahweh. How have I remained alive? Because what they're thinking to themselves is, I should be dead because no one can see God and live. But I've seen God. How do I make sense of this? I don't know. I've seen him. So you have someone who is seen, and they're claimed to be God, Yahweh. Let's look at another one. Genesis 32:30. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been delivered. Incredible. Jacob claims to have seen God face to face. How can that be? Joshua 5:14. So he said, no, rather I indeed come now as commander of the host of Yahweh. This is who appeared to him, to Joshua. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and bowed down and said to him, who has my Lord to say, or what has my Lord to say to his slave? The commander of the host of Yahweh said to Joshua, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. So what I'd like to bring about on this particular one is not so much that says, or Joshua claiming that he has actually seen Yahweh face to face. What you have here is Joshua, and this is in a religious context because he's standing on holy ground. He bows down before this person. Let's just call it an angelic person, a divine person of some kind. And this is an act of worship because you have the bowing down in a religious context. And that designates that this is worship happening, even if you don't have the word worship being used. But parallel this with Revelation 19. It says, "Then he said to me, 'Write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb.' And he said to me, 'These are true words of God.' Then I fell at his feet to do proskuneo." You could translate that. Let's just translate that. I fell down at his feet to do obeisance to him. Okay? "But he said to me, 'Do not do that. I am a fellow slave with you and your brothers who have the witness of Jesus. Worship God. For the witness of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.'" So John is just bowing down before this angel, this messenger. But the messenger says, don't do that. Worship God. How can it be that Joshua could just bow down in a holy place, holy ground before this angel? Why didn't this angel, let's just say it's an angel or a messenger who appeared before Joshua, why didn't that angel or messenger tell Joshua, "Don't do that. Don't bow down before me. You're standing on holy ground. This is a religious context. You should only be doing that to Yahweh. Don't do that to me." Why the difference here between the two? What is the actual difference between both accounts? One more, Judges 13:22. "So Manoah said to his wife, 'We will surely die, for we have seen God.' But his wife said to him, 'If Yahweh had desired to put us to death, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have let us hear things like this at this time.'" So they thought they were going to die because they saw Yahweh, but it was the messenger of Yahweh. Now, I don't know if your study conductor would do this, but it's possible they could bring up what's typically called the law of agency. Okay, where you have the main source, right? The main source sending an agent in his place, and the agent can be just treated like the sender. Okay, that could be something that is explained. But here's the thing. No one would ever look at the messenger and say to that messenger that they perfectly reveal and reflect all of the attributes of the one who sent them. That just wouldn't happen. Why would it? Especially when you're dealing with divinity. The messenger doesn't reflect all of the qualities. The messenger can communicate what the sender wanted them to communicate, right? And you would never treat the messenger harshly, because if you treat the messenger harshly, you're treating the sender harshly. So there's really a line between where agency can only go so far, because you wouldn't worship the agent. Why? So why would that be wrong to just worship the agent? Right? If it's God who is sent, you shouldn't need to be worshiping God. Why would you worship the agent? But we have these instances where if you want to call Jesus the agent is worshipped. Right? In the case of Joshua, if you want to call it the agent is worshipped. But in all these cases, if you want to say it's the agent reveals the sender so perfectly that they thought they're seeing the sender. So God sends the angel, and the angel reveals the sender so perfectly that they basically mistaken it. They're like, "I have seen God, I should be dying." You wouldn't say that about a mere agent. And so what Jesus is doing, to take this back to the verses in John, "He who has seen me has seen the Father," Jesus just reveals the Father so perfectly that there is nothing else to reveal about the one who has sent him. Point 2, how is Jesus shown? So let's go back to point 1 in the question. In what ways is Jesus like his Father? And you could answer, and I would encourage you to answer by Scripture, have Scriptures written down. And you could say not only the personality, that's what they're expecting you to say, but in all of the Father's attributes. And list those out and have the verses ready. And take your study conductor there and say, can we read these few passages to support my answer to this question? They shouldn't refuse you doing that. So how has Jesus shown that he loves Jehovah? Jesus said, for the world to know that I love the Father, I am doing just as the Father commanded me to do. While on earth, Jesus showed his great love for his Father by obeying him, even when it was difficult to do so. Jesus also loved to talk about his Father and to help others cultivate a friendship with him. And they cite here John 14:23, and it reads, if anyone loves me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him and will come to him and make our dwelling with him. So our dwelling, Father and Son. In verse 24, he who does not love me does not keep my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. There's nothing here about friendship with God, and you can ask your study conductor that question. I'm not seeing this concept of friendship with God in John 14:23. Can you show me where you're getting that from the text? And if you go back, and again, I don't have the lesson number in front of me. We did an entire lesson about friendship with God. I'd encourage you to go watch that review as a prerequisite for this, so you can bring that point up again, that the idea of friendship with God is not a Christian concept. That is more of a Jewish concept, because in a Christian context, we are adopted sons of God. We have the father-son relationship. It's sure, you can view that in some degree of friendship, just like your actual parents. You can say, my dad is my best friend. That's all fine and well. But first and foremost, he's your father. You are their son. There is a familial relational closeness that's only indirectly related to friendship. It's much deeper than that. So please go back and review that lesson and bring some of those points up here again. That would be really, really important. Okay, so we're going to skip down to the very end in summary. Jesus loves Jehovah and he loves people. Since Jesus is like his Father, the more you come to know Jesus, the more you come to know Jehovah. And that is correct, but the Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses don't view it really in that way. What coming to know someone actually entails, it entails a relationship. So in review, we're going to look at the second question. How can we show love for people as Jesus did? And you can open up such a big can of worms here. And there's different ways that you can approach this, but I would encourage you to ask it maybe in this kind of way. Did Jesus love people in his day that would have been considered apostates? Apostates to the Jewish system, or even worse, Gentiles. People who the Jehovah's Witnesses viewed as scum and shunned to some degree, except for the just most absolutely necessary conversations because they're living under Roman rule, so they had to communicate with the Romans. But they weren't supposed to be like best buds with Gentiles. But how did Jesus approach those who the people in his day were considered apostates? People who were just shunned by the Jewish system for whatever reason. They were disobeying the Pharisees because they were obeying Jesus, right? If you obeyed Jesus, they could have gotten expelled from the synagogue. How did Jesus teach the people to view those who were considered apostates? And what this can do is this can get the thinking process going of the Jehovah's Witnesses, because, and we'll cover this more, I think, in another lesson later on. The Jehovah's Witnesses, when you leave the religion, whether you're disfellowshipped or you willingly leave, you're essentially shunned the rest of your life. To where Jehovah's Witness is not supposed to communicate or have any sort of real relationship with you. Now, in times past, you weren't even supposed to say a hello. Literally, you were not even supposed to say hello to a disfellowshipped person. Now they've loosened that rule ever so slightly, to where they can actually say something like, "Hello, I'm glad that you came to the Kingdom Hall." And you're supposed to keep them quite at arm's length. You're not supposed to develop any sort of relationship, but you're allowed to greet them per the governing body's very recent instructions. But is that the kind of love that Jesus taught? Is that what Jesus taught you to do? And so the kind of love that Jesus showed is that even those who are considered apostates, Jesus taught to love them. Jesus said to love your enemy and do good to them, expecting nothing in return, and you will be rewarded for that. That's what Jesus taught. And Jesus doesn't make any qualifications there, where unless they're an apostate, then you should not show any sort of love or any communication. Treat them like the scum of the earth and just ignore them. Is that what Jesus taught? So we're going to wrap it up there. If you have any thoughts, any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Whether you leave a comment or if you want to go down in the video description or the show notes, there's a way to contact me personally. So you can do that. You can do that anonymously. I won't share your information with anyone. So we can talk through email. We can talk through different chats and apps. We can talk on even the phone. I am at your disposal, so please don't hesitate to reach out for me. Next lesson is how to identify real Christians. And you can probably imagine what the agenda is there, because in lesson 19, the agenda is to get to the Jehovah's Witness and say the Jehovah's Witnesses are the only real Christians. So we are kind of leaving Jesus. So again, make the most of those opportunities in those previous lessons, because you're leaving now. Not that you can't bring up stuff, and not that Jesus isn't mentioned in other lessons, but you're leaving the focus of it being a focal point of the person of Jesus. So again, maximize those opportunities in lesson 17. So I hope these reviews have been helpful to you. If you find them to be helpful, please let me know. I took about a year off from doing these, but I got a lot of requests to continue those. So if you are encouraged by these, if these are helping you, please let me know. That will encourage me to put a priority on these lessons and continue to doing these. So thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next lesson review. For more information about Jehovah's Witnesses and other topics, please visit michaeljfelker.com. There you can also reach me directly to submit questions or comments to be covered on the JW Review. To subscribe to this podcast, please go to iTunes and search for the JW Review.